Speaking of which, white supremacy, Matt Walsh still on the beat. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, all you hear in the media, all you hear from the Joe Biden administration, white supremacy this, white supremacy that. Well, I got news for you. According to Matt Walsh, that's a distraction from the genuine threat to this country, black supremacy.
Anyway, going into more detail, Garland went on to claim that, quote, the top domestic violent extremist threat we face comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocate for the superiority of the white race. In other words, says Garland, the greatest threat we face comes from violent extremists, but not the ones who've been rampaging through our cities, inflicting billions of dollars of damage, blocking traffic, harassing innocent people, and attacking random bystanders. Those extremists are often racially motivated themselves, but they're not the ones we should be worried about. Instead, according to the people at the highest levels of government, the racially motivated extremists that should attract our attention are the ones who aren't doing anything and are nowhere to be seen. Black supremacists can whip up a mob of thousands in an instant and terrorize cities for weeks on end. White supremacists can't do anything close to that, probably because they're hampered by the fact that they don't exist for the most part, which is a little bit of a logistical challenge I have found. If you want to do something but you don't exist, it presents problems. This is a threat that guys like Garland have fabricated. Now, perhaps they really are up at night, frantically tossing and turning, screaming, no, the white supremacists are coming. But I doubt it. The people who invent the boogeyman don't actually believe in it themselves. It is more that they are politically bound to this conclusion.
That's an interesting assessment of what it takes to create a boogeyman. But be that as it may, 2017, this according to the Brennan Center, the FBI had created a domestic terror program category it called Black Identity Extremism Movement. An FBI intelligence report cited 6 unrelated incidents over a 3-year period, averaging of 2 incidents a year, in which black subjects not associated with one another attacked police officers to allege that a terrorist movement driven by perceptions of police brutality against African Americans existed. The report stated that the perceived unchallenged illegitimate actions of law enforcement will inspire premeditated attacks against law enforcement by so-called black identity extremists, suggesting that the FBI's concerns lay not in illegal police violence, but the hypothetical retaliation it might provoke.
But Sam, the FBI is traditionally, historically, always downplayed the threat of black people and kind of put it off to the side. So,
of course.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really trust them. They were aiding and abetting the civil rights movement back in the day, which, by the way, Walsh's commentary here, indistinguishable from what you might have heard back during Malcolm X, Black Panthers, Martin Luther King. The real threat is black supremacy. At least update it, dude.
There have been so many just mass shootings over the past several years involving white supremacy that I want to just see. There is, the El Paso, the one in South Carolina. I mean, there's just so many examples that it's
also like international, like Wellington, like Christchurch, but also Anders Breivik. Like, this is who's doing that stuff.
I mean,
like, when it's ideological and like there's a manifesto, like the Black Lives Matter protests aren't black supremacists. I should say, like, I was at a couple of them. I'm not a black supremacist.
So you say.
I am anti-white, but
Richard Holzer. I mean, I'm just like randomly Googling this.
Well, 2021, far-right groups are behind the most U.S. terrorist attacks report finds from the New York Times, obviously liars. White supremacist groups have carried out a majority of terrorist plots and attacks this year, according to a report by the think tank Center for Strategic and International Studies.
Newsweek, here's a list of suspected white supremacists accused of domestic terrorism in 2019. Richard Holzer, 27, wanted to poison and bomb a local synagogue in Pueblo, Colorado, in order to expel the cancer that is the Jewish community. Patrick Crusius pled not guilty in October to capital murder charges for a mass shooting in El Paso Walmart. Connor Betts, he killed 9 people, injured 27 others in a Dayton, in an assault style rifle with an assault style rifle in Dayton, Ohio.
And this 2020 report, by the way, the Department of Homeland Security was raising alarms about far right extremism back even during the Trump era. The independent people were. And this report that I just cited, this was updated in 2021, but published in 2020 during the Trump times. The Center for Strategic and International Studies found that white supremacist groups were responsible for 41 of the 61 terrorist plots and attacks in the first 8 months of this year, 67%. So 67% of the attacks in the first 3/4 of 2020 by white supremacists, but they don't exist.
And all of these black supremacists have the ability to whip up mobs within moments. Within moments, these black supremacists who it's weird. It's nice that they're showing such restraint.
Did you see the camera just reset?
Yeah, I don't know why that
I don't know what just happened.
I would just say one thing with regards to tracking down white supremacy is, I think it's better, for instance, to be going after white supremacists than black identity extremists. I would also like an emphasis placed on white supremacy infiltration of things like the police and the FBI itself, because that's actually what I'm more concerned about.
Speaking of such things, there's a court case against the Proud Boy leader, Ethan Nordine. And it's fascinating. This is after the January 6th insurrection riot in the Capitol building. I don't know if you've seen that footage of that body cam by that cop who was knocked unconscious, and pretty disturbing video. Here is though some documents or some graphs from documents. Apparently this was from this guy's, I don't know, emails, or if it was from his chat or something. And prosecutors revealed these, and it is showing that, and I don't know if it's something he broadcast on their Slack channel or their Telegram channel, who knows what it is, but well, the prosecutors know what it is. But he writes, all right, I'm going to say it. F Trump, F him more than Biden. I followed this guy for 4 years and given everything and lost it all. Yes, he woke us up, but he led us to believe some great justice was upon us, and it never happened. Now I've got some of my good friends and myself facing jail time because we followed this guy's lead and never questioned it. We are now and always have been on our own. So glad he was able to pardon a bunch of degenerates as his last move and shit on us on the way out. Fuck you, Trump. You left us on the battlefield bloody and alone. And why this is interesting, I mean, yes, it's
who could have seen it coming? Who could have seen it coming? That
he's such a loyal guy.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, he just oozed trustworthiness.
But it's hilarious and it's funny, and I'm enjoying that part of it. But there's also something really important to understand here. These guys, at least these guys in the Proud Boys, and some of them, and I've heard it secondhand, so I won't repeat it, but somebody who knew one of these guys and had a conversation with them prior to this that was cryptic at the time became clearer after January 6th. There was an understanding that these guys had that they were going in not to protest, but to literally change the outcome of the election. That literally Trump was going to take over, that they were the shock troops gone in, and that there was going to be another wave that were going to come in. I don't know the details of it, but they thought what they were doing was not a protest. They thought there was going to be a material change in the leadership of the government on that day.
They'd be the first domino.
And they were the first wave.
The storm is coming. That's the QAnon lore. And they had a guillotine, or not a guillotine, but a noose set up. What's the word for it? But outside of the
gallows.
Gallows, yes.
The bottom line was that these people who stormed that Capitol, at least some of them, thought this was not a performance. They thought this was a coup. And the fact that it didn't happen, we don't know what part of this, how much of this, whether it was like just poor planning, whether there was an assumption that certain things would happen that didn't happen, whether some people said like, I'm not doing that. I mean, we don't know why it is that what these guys thought that they were there to do didn't happen. But the danger is, A, minimizing what they thought was going to happen. B, ignoring what the Republican leaders did or didn't do in that moment that encouraged this. Because there's no reason to think that it's not going to escalate from here. None. Zero, none. There's no reason to think that something like this couldn't happen again under the right circumstances in the near or mid or long term. I mean, that's the thing about this, that downplaying it, I think, is why it's problematic.
Well, the Republicans have made it clear that they will be using this fervor and this, aggrievement of a stolen election to propel them to victory in 2022 in the midterms.